Welcome to the new year and to the January 2020 edition of the AJP-Heart and Circulatory Physiology video table of contents, or from the editor's desk. We're expecting great things from the journal this year, and we're off to a great start with some outstanding cardiovascular science. So let's get a sample. Review by Beckers and Sohns, the role of the maternal microbiome in preeclampsia is discussed. The once thought sterile placenta now has been proposed to have a unique microbiome of its own. Dysbiosis of these communities may lead to inflammation that potentially contribute to adverse pregnancy outcomes, such as preterm birth and preeclampsia. This review looks at the maternal reproductive tract microbiome, evidence for and against, and its role in pregnancy and preeclampsia-related events, as well as data from relevant mouse models that could be useful for further investigating the influence of the reproductive tract microbiome on the pathogenesis of preeclampsia. Toon et al. Review the mechanisms responsible for local metabolic control of coronary blood flow. How coronary microvascular resistance is tightly coupled with myocardial oxygen consumption remains one of the most highly contested mysteries of the coronary circulation. The review highlights difficulties in interpreting the complex interrelationship between key coronary outcome variables and the arguments that emerge from prior studies performed during exercise, hemodilution, hypoxemia, and alterations in perfusion pressure. Potential paths forward are proposed to help facilitate further dialogue and to study and unravel what has become the Gordian knot of the coronary circulation. In a third review, Cristina Oliveira et al. Discuss the altered metaboreflex in cardiovascular disease during ischemic exercise. Blood flow restriction training, or BFRT, is an increasingly widespread method of exercise that involves imposed restriction of blood flow to the exercising muscle. BFRT has expanded into the clinical research setting as a potential therapeutic approach to treat functionally impaired individuals, such as the elderly and patients with orthopedic and cardiovascular disease. There is general concern that BFRT may generate abnormal reflex-mediated cardiovascular responses. The evidence provided in this review draws into question the cardiovascular safety of BFRT, which clearly needs to be further investigated in future studies. DeBurge et al. Hypothesized that excessive inflammation by monocytes contribute to the initiation of adaptive immune responses to cardiac self-antigen. Using an experimental model of MI in mice, alpha-myosin heavy-chain M-cherry reporter mice, which specifically express M-cherry in cardiomyocytes, they detected alpha-myosin heavy-chain antigen in myeloid cells in the heart draining mediastinal lymph nodes, or MLN, 7 days after myocardial infarction. To test whether monocytes were required for cardiac self-antigen tracking to MLN, they blocked monocyte recruitment with a CCR2 antagonist or immune-modifying nanoparticles. Blockade of monocyte recruitment reduced alpha-myosin heavy-chain antigen detection in MNL after myocardial infarction. Taken together, these data support a role for monocytes in the onset of pathological cardiac autoimmunity following MI and suggest that therapeutic targeting of monocytes may mitigate post-myocardial infarction autoimmunity in humans. Espy et al. Describe a novel magnetic resonance imaging method for the measurement of right ventricular strain. 46 rats with myocardial infarction and 10 control rats or sham rats were examined 6 weeks after surgery. Using a 9.4 Tesla preclinical MRI, they utilized PCMRI to measure strain and strain rate in the right ventricular free wall. Left ventricular end diastolic pressure was measured and used to identify pulmonary congestion. The infarct rats were divided into two groups with signs of pulmonary congestion with an LVEDP greater than 15 and without signs of pulmonary congestion with an LVEDP of less than 15. The group without signs of pulmonary congestion exhibited preserved right ventricular strain and strain rates, whereas the pulmonary congested rats exhibited reduced strain rates. Of the strain parameters, longitudinal strain and strain rate exhibited the highest correlations to LVEDP and lung weight. In a timely and important study by Yu et al., the neurocirculatory response to static hand grip was evaluated in women with post-traumatic stress disorder. PTSD is a psychiatric illness that is more prevalent in women, and accumulating evidence suggests a link between PTSD and future development of cardiovascular disease. These investigators measured muscle sympathetic nerve activity, blood pressure, and heart rate responses in 14 women with PTSD and 14 healthy controls. During static hand grip exercise to fatigue at 40% of maximum voluntary contraction, 2 minutes of post-exercise circulatory arrest was followed immediately after static hand grip to fatigue. At the first 30 seconds of static hand grip, women with PTSD showed augmented sympathetic neural and pressor responses compared with controls. However, muscle sympathetic nerve activity and blood pressure responses at fatigue and during post-exercise circulatory arrest were not different between groups. Interestingly, the augmented initial neural and pressor responses to static hand grip were associated with greater awake systolic blood pressure variability during ambulation in women with PTSD. These results suggest that early onset exercise pressor responses in women with PTSD may be attributed to enhanced mechano rather than metabo reflexes, which might suggest that there's a contribution to the mechanisms underlying the link between PTSD and cardiovascular risk. Thank you for watching the January issue of From the Editor's Desk. We hope you've had a great month and you'll have a great 2020. As you may know, each month APS publishes a compendium of papers called APS Select. These papers are recommended by the editors of each journal and can be found on our website. Please take a look at the outstanding work that was selected in the previous year in our journal. These papers are highlighted here as well. We'll see you next month, and don't forget to send us your best work now.